Really privileged to be here, and thanks to Vishnupriya for inviting me, and thank you for making this event, because as Republic Day happens tomorrow, the parade and the militarization of the parade, I think this is a fantastic occasion. So thank you all for being here. I want to start with an anecdote. I think it was about 4 years ago now, 2016, when I was last here as a visiting fellow, and I was staying at JNIAS. And as you all know better than me, that was also a spark for JNU to come together under adverse circumstances. And I remember very clearly being in JNIAS and listening to the dhols being beaten at the main gate as the BJP goons kind of collected and shouted really awful slogans. And at that time, I thought of C.P. Kavafi. He's an Egyptian poet, or was, and he wrote a poem called Waiting for the Barbarians. And I'd like to share that with you, if I may, before I say a few things, because I think it'll be very difficult for me to follow Anupama's very erudite outlining of the issues here. What are we waiting for? Assembled in the forum. The barbarians are due here today. Why isn't anything going on in the Senate? Why are the senators sitting there without legislating? Because the barbarians are coming today. What's the point of senators making laws now? Once the barbarians are here, they'll do the legislating. Why did our emperor get up so early, and why is he sitting enthroned at the city's main gate in state wearing the crown? Because the barbarians are coming today, and the emperor's waiting to receive their leader. He's even got a scroll to give him, loaded with titles, with imposing names. Why have our two councils and protectors come out today, wearing their embroidered, their scarlet togas? Why have they put on bracelets with so many amethysts, rings sparkling with magnificent emeralds? Why are they carrying elegant canes beautifully worked in silver and gold? Because the barbarians are coming today, and things like that dazzle the barbarians. Why don't our distinguished orators turn up as usual to make their speeches, say what they have to say? Because the barbarians are coming today, and they are bored by rhetoric and public speaking. Why this sudden bewilderment? This confusion? How serious people's faces have become. Why are the streets and squares emptying so rapidly? Everyone going home, lost in thought? Because the night has fallen and the barbarians haven't come. And some of our men, just from the border, say there are no barbarians any longer. Now what's going to happen to us without the barbarians? These people were a kind of a solution. And I think, for me, the CAA actually speaks to this, because it is constructing the non-citizen, the other, the barbarian, that makes for the kind of policing, the kind of surveying, the kind of violence that we have seen in recent times. It is the other that constructs the state, and it is the state that brings into being the citizen if we allow them to. And thinking about 2016, I felt, well, actually, the real barbarians were the ones who construct the other in these ways that Kavafi so beautifully talked about. At the same time, and I will take off from where Anupama is left, I think citizenship, in a way, is, as Arendt felt, also a call to action, right? Freedom is when we can act. And I think all of you here are showing that we can actually be, we are citizens in that deeper sense. So what I want to do today is to think about how this performance of citizenship that we are doing together collectively is very different from the kind of citizenship that the CAA is trying to frame for us. And if we just refuse, so the act of refusal in itself as a political act can then allow us to perform as citizens in different ways. So what I've got is just very brief 6 or 7 points, which I will rapidly go through. So I think in that sense of citizenship as action, I think citizenship can be, that's my first point, can be framed and articulated and performed in many different ways. And I think one is this, one is also Anupama explaining to us, what it all means, the history of our citizenship debates, but it's also inherently performative. It is simultaneously learned, cultivated, and improvised. Some citizenship is nomadic. We are all citizens of the world, after all. We are concerned about each other. We think about what others are doing to us and what we can do in order to develop new solidarities. So citizenship as is articulated and performed in many different ways. The second point I'd like to make is that citizens perform in relation to others. I think you already said that it is a relational concept. We can't just be citizens individually. So here the Kawafi poem is really important, because if we refuse to construct the others as non-citizens only, I think we will challenge that narrow notion of citizenship that the CAA encapsulates. So through a relational citizenship, we can build solidarities of everyday life. As Kingswell has said, I think, the relationship between citizens is friendly in the sense of feeling obligation and commitment to others. And yes, I think 2 or 3 days ago, I was at Shaheen Bagh, and this was very much evident there. People were there from different parts of the city, people were there from different religions, people were there from different classes, people were there, and yet there was a sense in which the communication between people was very clearly a solidaristic one. The third thing I like to say is then that citizenship is embodied. When I think about the remarks that have been made about pohas and dress and in other contexts about color of your skin, the embodiment of citizenship allows the state to construct it in one way, but a refusal to allow citizens to be so constructed can also then dramatize our solidarities. So again, yesterday at Shaheen Bagh, I was, talking to this woman who had the whole hijab, etc. on, and I was speaking with her about why she was here, and she had a small child with her, and I said, you brought your child? She said, yes, my other children are being looked after by my mother-in-law. And my first response was, oh, she didn't mind you coming here? And she just looked at me, saying, why? Why would she mind? She said she doesn't see very well, otherwise she would be here. So instead she's looking after my children, facilitating me coming here. But I thought about it myself, and I thought, is it because she was a not very educated woman in a hijab in Shaheen Bagh from the Mohalla that I felt able to say, oh, your mother-in-law would have stopped you coming, as if this was an act of courage? But no, it wasn't. So how we see people in their bodies, in their dress, etc., can actually be a really important way of refusing to have a particular form of citizenship thrust upon us. The fourth point I'd like to say is that citizenship, we can't just assume it. We have to labor over it. It is labored over. Rehearsing performance takes time, effort, striving, and resources that are differentially distributed. So the fact that these women said, we didn't come out when, the Babri Masjid happened. We didn't come out when 370 happened. We didn't come out when the triple talaq happened. We come out now. What are the triggers? And when you come out, what do you have to do to make sure that this is a sustainable refusal? This is a sustainable enactment of a different kind of citizenship. That takes a lot of courage, but also a lot of labor, which I think would be really important to emphasize, because that labor also depends on the kind of resources we can command. So actually class matters and caste matters and gender matters in laboring for citizenship. The fifth point that I'd like to say is citizenship is performed in political spaces and also politicizes spaces through its performance. Take a look at this. Just because we are not at the administrative building as last time, this space, which might not have been so politicized, though it's JNU, I think probably all spaces are politicized here, right? But still, it might not have been in the last struggle, but it is now. Look at Shaheen Bagh, again, a piece of road just blocked off and made their own through the wonderful art that is on display there. The posters, which are witty, they are acerbic, they are solidaristic, they are incisive, they are artistically and aesthetically beautiful. That's what makes citizenship also take shape in particular spaces. But it also politicizes old spaces as new if we occupy. So the whole point of the Occupy movement was just that. When different bodies occupy old spaces, you politicize that space. And you say, we will not allow you to take up this space. So again, in Shaheen Bagh, there was a model of India Gate. We know, for example, India Gate has become a collective, point of taking on the state and challenging it. Sixth, citizenship performance is fraught and liminal, and that is where I'm quite worried just now. There are all these moments of violence which can actually either take us forward together or it can break us up. And being in Shaheen Bagh and then reading the papers and seeing how violence is just under the surface. It could be legal, it could be police, or it could be just agents provocateurs. So it's not necessary, and that therefore I go back to my earlier point about laboring on citizenship, that we cannot take our solidarities at this moment for granted. Neither can we take however much we need to celebrate that too, but neither can we think that the state is too scared of us and it's going to let us carry on the way we are. So liminality of our citizenship performance needs to be kept in mind. And finally, therefore, as Ruth Lister has also said, citizenship unfolds in and through performance. It doesn't mean that we need to translate in our everyday lives what Anupama started by saying, which is the Constitution. Unless we sort of make a claim on the state, unless we perform our rights, it isn't going to be, and as we perform them, citizenship takes different forms. And I think this is a really important moment and a very, very powerful moment on this eve of our Republic Day for us to consider citizenship not just as a constitutional title, but also as an enactment of our everyday lives. Thank you.